So in today's video, I will teach you the process on how I draw hyperrealistic eyes. So in step 1, all I'm doing is looking at the image and picking the pencils I think will work best. If you're unsure on what colours to pick, all you have to do is a little sample test on a piece of paper next to your drawing and that will be fine. So once you have your rough starting palette, you can sharpen all your pencils, and if you're missing any colours, you can always go back and try to find the colour that you're missing. But for the moment, I will start with this palette and I'll slowly take away pencils that I don't need. And if you're struggling to pick the colours, I use an app called Pixel Picker. You can zoom in, it points in on the colour. It's really handy if you're a bit confused of which colour is which. So as you can see, I have lines down on the paper, and for this technique I use graphite transfer paper. You can look up this technique on YouTube, or you can use any transferring technique you want, or you can use different things like the grid method or just freehand sketching. But for this drawing in particular, I just want to work on hyperrealism and using color pencils. I'm not trying to get better at sketching for this drawing. I purposely want to make a drawing as realistic as I can. The way I like to start a drawing that is extremely detailed is break it up into sections. So as you can see on the image on the screen to your right, I'm focusing on just one triangular section at a time. The first thing I do normally is to map in the darkest details, green at the bottom and more of an orangey colour at the top, which are my midtones, and then I'll add darker greens and lighter greens, and darker oranges and lighter oranges. I work on building up the layers, slowly adding more pressure with my pencil. When I'm 100% complete that triangular section, I move on to the next section. So we finished up our first section of the eye, and I'm going to move on to the section on the left, which is outlined in green on the reference. The white is obviously the section I finished. The area in between is the 5% section that will blend the two together. So this is the complete process I use to draw the iris. Throughout this whole drawing of the iris, I will only focus on one section at a time, and I'll complete that section before moving on. When I get more confident, I will do bigger triangles and bigger sections, but for the moment, I'll stick to the same size. And for now, I'm going to time lapse me drawing the rest of the iris. So I just finished off the highlight in the eye, and now I'm going to move on to the right side of the iris. I've just been focusing on blending, choosing the right colours and staying in the section that I picked to work on. I have not been focusing on if it looks realistic or not, because at this stage it still doesn't look realistic, but it looks detailed. The drawing will only look realistic when I'm finished, or when I'm finished the eyeball. So for now I'm just going to time lapse the next section of the iris. So for the eyeball, all it is layering and blending colours together. When I'm happy with the first layer and the colours, I put down the second layer. If you don't know how to layer, all it is adding light pressure with your pencil first and slowly adding more pressure over time. So the first layer is light, the second layer will be heavier than the first layer, and the third layer will be heavier than the second layer. I'll keep doing this until it's smooth. I layer like this because if you go in too fast with one colour, it's just going to look like one colour and not multiple colours, and you'll lack realism. That's why you have to layer your colours with coloured pencils. So there's no secret to drawing the eyeball. I am going to time lapse the next half. Hopefully you can learn something by watching the time lapse. After the time lapse, I will go through how I draw the eyelids. Up close angle so you can see the texture of the paper still, and you can see the drawing. This is just a base layer, but you can see the different colors I'm trying to get in. You have the blues, you have the browns, you have the purples, you have the grays. So for my next step, I'm just going to do the exact same thing, keep going over the areas of where I put down the color, basically mapped out what I need to do, and I'll make it the exact same as this side where it's super smooth and it looks like an eyeball. Only thing I'm doing is basically using a circular motion, slowly applying pressure, nothing too crazy. I'm not doing big harsh lines, big harsh movements, just layering, which is super simple, just putting color over on the paper until I'm happy with how it looks and it looks like the reference image. Again, I'm going to time lapse the next section, get the eyeball done, and we're going to move on to the eyelids. So step 4, eyelashes and eyelids, is by far the easiest step out of all the steps. So the first thing you want to do is map out your eyelashes in black. I'm going to be layering over the eyelashes to create the eyelids. So instead of just laying over the graphite, I'll be laying over the black. So when I need to do the eyelashes again, I'll be able to see where they are supposed to be. So for the top eyelid, all it is blending colours together. All I'm using is variations of brown skin tones and white and black. I actually darkened the eyelashes again just in case I lose them when I'm blending. I will go into more depth on the bottom eyelid because there's a lot more detail than the top. The top eyelid is just blending colours together. There's nothing complicated compared to the iris and the eyeball. So for the moment, I'm just going to time lapse me finishing off the top eyelid, and I'm going to go into more depth in the bottom. So for the bottom eyelid, all I've done is put down a base layer of colour. I did complete the top half of the bottom eyelid, but it was only 2 or 3 colours to create a transition, so I said I'd get that out of the way. All I'm doing with my pencil is using circular motions, and I'm creating sections where the detail is. As you can see on the left, the detail is basically just 2 lines and just some white next to those 2 lines. The circular motions allows everything to blend into each other, so you get an unfocused look. So all I'm going to do now is continue to layer, finish off the bottom eyelid, and then add in the eyelashes, and that will be the bottom eyelid complete. So that is my full eye drawing tutorial, guys. Hopefully you can learn something from it. Obviously I didn't go into full depth on everything, but hopefully in the future I will make an eye drawing tutorial that goes into depth on absolutely everything. If you like the video, guys, please subscribe. Hopefully I'll get another YouTube video out next week. And make sure to comment if you like the drawing, if you don't, and if you want to see a finished picture of the drawing, that'll be over on my Instagram at @DarrowBryanArt.